Hi and welcome to this video from the Transition Year Higher Level Maths Algebra Revision Module series. This Algebra Revision module has been put together to assist you with revising all algebra topics from the Junior Cert Higher Level course and to help you as you move into the Leaving Cert Higher Level Maths course. This video today is going to focus on solving quadratic trinomial equations. There are two methods that we're going to focus on. The first is the factorization method and the second is the quadratic formula, which is more commonly known as the minus b formula. As we're going to use factorization, if you've not already revised factorization, I would advise that you watch the factorization video from this series first before going forward with this video. So here's our first example. So the question is simply solve 3x squared plus x minus 14 equals 0. So we know it's quadratic because it contains an x squared, an x and a constant. Just to draw your attention to this x here. So what we don't generally write in maths is the 1 that appears before this. Now, if you want to put in that 1 to help you, that's absolutely fine. What I would equate it to is if I said to you, I have a dog, you will be able to tell me I had one dog, even though I didn't use the word one. So similarly, just writing x, there is an x there. So there's one x there. So there should be a 1 in front of it. So that's just something that may help. So like I said earlier, if you want to revise the guide number method in more detail, there is a factorization video. So I'm just going to crack through this. So our guide number in this case is negative 42, and that's coming from 3 by minus 14. And then we need the factors of that. So 7 sixes are 42, and the way that these should look, it should be a plus 7 and a minus 6, which will add to give me a plus 1, which is what we want. So now we're going to rewrite it. So 3x squared minus 6x plus 7x minus 14 equals 0. So now we're going to do grouping. So 3x is common, leaving us with x minus 2, plus 7 is common, x minus 2. Our brackets are now common. We have x minus 2 in both. Just take that out and we're left with 3x plus 7 equals 0. So at this point what we've done, and just for us to follow what we're doing, these are the factors. But this question is asking us to solve it. So when we solve it, what we actually want is an answer. So we want x equals. So how we do that is we let each of our factors equal 0. So x minus 2 equals 0 and 3x plus 7 equals 0. So this gives me x equals 2, and then this is 3x equals minus 7, so x equals minus 7 over 3. If you want to write in a decimal you can, but leaving it as the fraction here is perfect. So what we've actually done then is we have solved it. They're our answers, but each of these are actually called our roots. Now we go into a bit more detail about factors and roots in the video where we're looking at graphing and specifically looking at the polynomials and working from the roots back to the polynomials. So again, if you want to check that out for more information, that's absolutely fine. But for now, just keep in mind that the first step was to get our factors and then we get our roots. So this is the factorization method because we use factorization, and then once we have our factors, we use our factors to find the roots. So if you're using another type of factorization, not guide number, if you have a different type of factorization that can be used, such as highest common factor, then this part here, so letting each factor equal 0, will still work. So before we take a look at an example of using the quadratic formula, let's take a look at the quadratic formula itself. The quadratic formula, or the minus b formula as it's more commonly known, can be used to solve any quadratic equation. The formula itself features on page 20 of your log tables, and the formula is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, where ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So a is the coefficient of the x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant, or the piece without an x. It's important that when you take these a, b, and c, that you also take the sign. The sign will be hugely important. The plus and minus in this formula will allow us to get two roots, or two answers that we know we should get with any quadratic equation. In some cases, it's possible to use factorization or the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula will always work with solving a quadratic equation. However, in some cases, the quadratic formula is the only way where we can solve, so the factorization method in this case would not work. So there's a number of ways that the question will indicate that you must use the quadratic or minus b formula. So the two things to watch out for when you're doing questions are things like give your answer correct to so many decimal places. That could be give your answer correct to 1 decimal place, give your answer correct to 2 decimal places, or give your answer in third form, which means leave your answer with a square root. If the question does not ask for either of these forms, so if you don't see anything like that in a question, it is a good assumption that factorization can be used, especially in exam questions. So let's look at example 2. The question is solve the following equation to 2 decimal places. Now the question here is very important because 2 decimal places, what they're asking us here is hinting at something quite specific. So we could go along and use our guide number, but what we would find is we would not be able to find the factors of the guide number, which would give us plus 9. Now, what my advice on this would be, if you can't find the factors within a minute, then it's time to use this method. But keep an eye on the question. If they tell us something like 2 decimal places, they are basically telling us that we need to use the minus b formula. Now, the minus b formula appears in your log table, so you don't need to know it off by heart. However, I would always write it down in your question anyway. So let's use our minus b here. So what they also tell us in the log tables is this is used with ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So the first thing I do is I would go to my equation here, and we should label our a, our b, and our c. So I've just highlighted them there just so we can see, but it's still good to write a equals 2, b equals 9, and c equals minus 16. So be really careful with your signs there. So let's fill into our formula. So x equals minus 9, so minus b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 by a by c. And this is all over, and do follow your formula, it's all over 2a. Now, sorry, apologies, so it should be all over 2, and a is 2, so we sub in 2. So let's clean that up. So we have x equals minus 9 plus or minus the square root of 81, now 9's are 81, and minus 4 by 2 is 8, so minus 8 by minus 16 will give me a plus 128, and that's going to be all over 4. Okay, so let's clean that up even more. X is equal to minus 9 plus or minus the square root of 209 all over 4. So let's go with the positive first. So I'm going to go with x equals minus 9 plus the square root of 209 all over 4. So we get x is equal to 1.364208. Okay. And then we work with the minus, so x equals minus 9 minus root 209 all over 4, and when we work that out we get that minus 5.864208. Now the question asks us for 2 decimal places, so each of them need to be rounded. So this is going to be rounded here, and this is going to be rounded here. So when we are rounding, we need to look at the next number. So since the next number is 4, they will stay the same. So my two answers are x equals 1.36 and x equals minus 5.8. So example 3, so this is another example of the minus b formula, and if we look at the question, it says solve the following equation leaving your answer in third form. And again, this is a major hint for us that we should be using minus b. So in the previous example, we saw that when they used decimal places, that's hinting to us to use the minus b formula. And again here, in third form, or showing us something with a square root. So remember, your third is a square root. So showing us something with a square root would indicate that that's what we're going to use. So let's write down the minus b formula. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, where we're working with ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. In this example here, a equals 3, b equals 12, and c equals 1. So subbing into our formula, we get x equals minus 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared minus 4 by 3 by 1, and that's all over 2 by 3. So let's clean that up. It's minus 12 plus or minus square root of 12 squared is 144. 4 by 3 is 12 by 1 is still 12, and that's all over 6. So to clean that up even more, plus or minus square root, and we have 1, 3, 2 all over 6. So let's go with our positive first. So x is equal to minus 12 plus the square root of 132 all over 6. So instead of putting this into our calculator to get the answer in decimal points, we have to remember that they've asked it for us in third form. So if we look at this, we get minus 12, and root 132 actually simplifies to plus, sorry, this should be equals minus. So root 132 actually simplifies to 2 root 33, and that's still over 6, and that can be simplified a little bit more. So x equals minus 12 over 6 plus 2 root 33 over 6. So that simplifies to minus 2 plus root 33 over 3. And now we can work with the negative. So x equals minus 12 minus square root of 132 all over 6. And working in the exact same way, we'll get x equal to minus 2 minus root 33 over 3. So our two answers, our two roots, are here and here, both in third form.